On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, good God, we have some exciting news.
Ooh, what do we got?
A Captain Pike show. We have a Captain Pike show.
Captain Pike show happening on CBSAllAccess.
Not for long.
What does that mean?
Well, we're going to talk about that too.
Ooh.
Right after these commercials that we can't control.
What a tease you are. What a tease.
Tee-hee.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
And I am David C. Robertson.
David C. Robertson, you know what? It's really good to talk to you, buddy.
Is it?
Yeah, you know, we're doing this slower. I know, I feel like every time we do this, I say this now because we do these like every 2 or 3 weeks instead of every week while there's no show on, and I just miss you. I miss you, Dave. It's just nice.
You too, man.
I miss you. I miss the show. I miss sitting around talking about Star Trek for an hour. Let's dive right in and get to the meat of the heat of the meat. What's the phrase?
I don't, the meat, sorry, I think, is it the heat of the meat?
I think it's heat of the meat. I think that's
disgusting.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So we've suspected this was coming for quite a while. It has been officially confirmed. CBSAllAccess, kind of, maybe, I guess, for the time being, that's what they're calling it, has ordered the new Captain Pike series. It will have Ethan Peck. It will have Rebecca Romaine. Anson Mount is coming back as Pike. It's going to be Pike, Spock, number one.
That's
all coming
awesome.
back from Discovery. The show will be called Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
And according to CBS, the series will follow Captain Pike, Science Officer Spock, and number one in the decade before Captain Kirk boarded the USS Enterprise as they explored new worlds around the galaxy. And according to them, it will take the trio of Spock, Pike, and number one in the USS Enterprise almost right up to the reign of that certain James T. Kirk. Almost. So, you know, I'm excited. I am excited. We've got Akiva Goldsman wrote the premiere with Alex Kurtzman and Jenny Lumet. Kurtzman, Goldsman, and Lumet will serve as executive producers in addition to Henry Alonzo Myers of The Magicians, Heather Caden and Rod Roddenberry and Trevor Roth. Aaron Byers, Akila Cooper, and Davey Perez are going to be co-executive producers. And Goldsman is going to remain the executive producer and keep part of the creative team on Star Trek Picard as well. So I'm just really super stoked. I really liked Pike, and I was warming up to Ethan Peck as Spock.
Yeah, same here.
And me not like being like head over heels for him is just because he's not Nimoy, and that's
right.
Just no one's going to be Nimoy ever, and that is no one will be.
And he came in cold. Like from coming in cold, you know, I enjoyed what is his name? What's his name on Heroes? The Zachary Quinto, but what was his name on here? Siler? Man,
how did you not get it right after like 20 tries?
3 combinations, and I said them all wrong. Okay. Siler.
Yeah.
Siler, when I heard him announced as Spock, you know, we weren't going to get, we got Nimoy back, but we weren't going to get him back as young Spock. If we're going to have a young Spock, I at least had him coming in with a lot of goodwill because of his role on Heroes. With Peck being this new young Spock, it's like he had no goodwill coming in, and he really earned a lot from me. In that first season. You know, it's going to be hard to take on the reins of that role for anyone, but that he did a really good job. You know, the thing that excites me most about this announcement is, well, you know, I am so torn because Star Trek, I love Star Trek. Let me just say that, because you know how love sometimes it makes you throw out your inhibitions. It makes you do things that aren't logical.
No.
All right. Screw you and your Vulcan ways. You green-blooded bastard. Well, other people it does. And
I've been there.
I find myself realizing how much I love Star Trek because things that I hate about other shows, I'm excited to see Star Trek do. For instance, just because I like it. I like Pike. I like the characters, and I just want to see them more. I have said over and over, I don't want another prequel. But every time I hear a Pike show, I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty great.
I don't mind. And you know what? Like, longtime listeners of the show know that I don't necessarily consider Discovery and nor this version of Captain Pike or whatever to be the prime timeline that we came up with the original series. But I don't care because it's all a multiverse and it is canon in that way to me. So, but it is all Star Trek and I love it.
Right.
So, here's the thing that really makes me excited about this show, other than just seeing these guys and like, hopefully we'll get a couple more names from like the Cage. Maybe we'll, but what makes me excited is like, how do you do 7, 8, 10, whatever years, however long this show goes? How do you do that? And with a captain who knows what his ultimate fate is.
Yeah, who has chosen his fate and continues to choose his fate. It worries me a little bit because I feel like that could be tired, but at the same time, like the fact that he made that decision in the, or he tried, like, he's a little self-destructive. The scene where he tries to save the admiral by being the one to be in the room, it's like he knows he's not going to die. And it was like they included that scene to make sure we know, no, Pike also has to make good decisions. It's an interesting dynamic. It kind of reminds me of the sort of sweeping things you get in like a Doctor Who. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the characters were like the what was it? The sentry that stood for 1,000 years waiting on his love to come back. That kind of a character. These sort of like epic characters that Star Trek is not known for. Star Trek is known for a little more down to earth characters that are epic because of the things they've been through and the things they do. But they're just humans, or they're just whatever they are. But they're still sort of down to earth characters, and they are the characters they are because of what they go through and what they do. He feels a little more like a Doctor Who character to me, that sort of like man who knows his fate, like man wandering the earth knowing his fate. Like that's an interesting concept in Star Trek, and I dig it.
Yeah, that to me, that elevates Pike to like like Cisco level epicness.
Right, exactly, yes. Cisco's an example of like a character that did have this sort of epic story behind him. And, he's not the only one. There's others in Star Trek. Odo being another one. I guess DS9 is known a little more for that than anything else. The other thing I wanted to say that I really like, that I would think I would hate, but I'm so excited about it. And I don't know if I'm making some assumptions by thinking this means what I think it means. But did you see the presentation video where it's just the crew saying they're excited about it?
No, I didn't watch any of that.
There's a thing on Twitter of Anson Mount, Peck, and Romaine doing like a we're so excited to do it. But the quote that I wrote down was, we are going to get to do a classic Star Trek show that deals with optimism and the future.
Yeah, I did see that, and I honestly kind of took it for bullshit. You know how like the cast just says the bullshit nice things that aren't really like, oh yeah, we're finally dealing with optimism. Well, that's what they said in Discovery Season 2. And I felt like they did make huge strides towards that.
Yeah.
But
the parts of the show that were Pike, though. Were Pike and Spock. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
And now we're making a whole show based on those because they are the thing that a lot of the fan base missed. It's like that Admiral says, Pike is the best of them. She sent him off because he's the best of them. And I really think that that we're going to get a show that is about the crew that is the best of them. The best of the Federation has to offer.
I mean, obviously he's the best of them. I mean, the guy chose to be a freaking burn victim paraplegic. I mean,
yep.
he chose that life for the greater good.
To save the galaxy, but yeah, like,
yeah.
To save the galaxy, which, you know, yeah, like he did the right thing. He is the Federation. That moment, I've never heard the Federation summed up so well. Right after he touches the time crystal and he falls to the ground and kind of like he says almost like a prayer to the Federation. Like he says like a mantra. He does. He says this mantra that he's like, this is what I believe, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to choose because he is so deeply the Federation. That is who he is. Maybe more so than any other captain we've seen. And he came in as such a blank slate because we have such a little bit of information from him from the other series that I think that Pike has the chance to be such a like representation, this like shining version of what a captain could be. Now, I do think that we're going to get that crew dealing with the darkness of the universe that they've created. And so hopefully there will be some tension there. The other thing that makes me think it's going to be more like a classic Star Trek show is they're calling it Strange New Worlds, which sounds to me like an episodic television show. Maybe not every week a new planet, but it kind of sounds like that's what they're going for.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. Like, I'm good.
I would not think I'd be excited for that, but my love of Star Trek has me excited for these things that normally I'd be like, oh, I like shows with overarching plots and gritty characters that are real. And then I'm like, oh man, but just like a Doctor Who style character that's like full of optimism and like ready to go do the thing and have a episodic week to week show. Like I'm so on board. Let's do a prequel. Why not? Let's do another prequel. You know what? That sounds like what I want right now. I'm in love. I'm in love, Dave.
Just wait for those chemicals to wear off.
The chemicals are wearing off. Sorry. I should not scream while my girlfriend's sleeping.
The very fact that they said like, oh, before Kirk shows up, I give it 2 seasons before Kirk shows up at the most.
I disagree. I think Kirk is Superman's cape.
I don't think so.
I think Kirk is the last thing you'll see on this Smallville-esque bullshit.
Okay, no. And here's why I say no. All right, like in Discovery, they were like, "Oh, I don't know if we're going to see the Enterprise. This is not the Enterprise story." And then there's like, "Okay, well, we'll do season 2 and we'll show Enterprise." And they're like, well, we're not going to see Spock or anything. And then season 2, they're like, the whole story is about Spock and Pike.
This Pike story is going to be a totally different thing we've never seen before, though, because Discovery, no one liked season 1. Or, I mean, not to say no one liked season 1. I liked season 1. But
I enjoyed season 1 quite
a lot of people didn't like season 1. It got a lot of flack. And then they made a season 2, and the thing everyone loved was this crew, and now they're making a show about the crew that everyone loved. I don't think they will be panicking as much in a season 2 of this show where they're like, we have to change it up. We have to do something different. I think they're going to make a show that is classic Trek and it's Strange New Worlds, and I'm on board for it. I do hope there's a lot of overarching character development, but you know what? If they made a DS9 style show where it's still episodic, but there's character development and there's overarching plots and there's returning characters, I would be so on board. I've been watching DS9 a lot, and you know, I always say season 1, you just got to get through season 1. It's season 1 is kind of bad.
Season 1 actually is pretty good, though.
It's so great. It's so great. I'm in love, Dave. I'm in love.
Yep, I got you. I'm here for it, man. I'm excited. I'm down for all of it. There's absolutely nothing. And here's what people tend to not understand or get angry with me about. You know, when I say I don't think it's necessarily Prime because of the aesthetic, I'm just taking these stories and putting them. I'm just saying, like, oh, it's really close, though. So it's just happening on that old ship as well. On the original series. Like, all these adventures are happening. It's just one universe over for me.
Sure. Sure.
I'm really excited. I feel like I'm watching, I'm watching Star Trek as far as I'm concerned. And I'm kind of beating that drum a little bit because I had a couple people that I was just talking to casually, and they were like, "Yeah, we know you don't like this," and I was like, "Wait, no, I like Discovery. What? What are you talking about?" Yeah. And then like it was like, "Oh, wait,
that they don't use the old ships. You like so far you've mostly liked the stories. You just don't like that they don't use the old ships."
Yeah, it's not that it's not canon.
Right.
Parallels on TNG made it canon. Mirror made it canon. It's just,
Yeah.
I like my old ships.
I hear you. I don't have to do that mental gymnastics, but I understand that you do it, and I appreciate that you're doing that because of your love of the show and trying to get it in there to where you can enjoy it, even if there are some. There are things if they did them that would really bother me, and it would be really hard. It's one thing if it's like a passing thing they do. It's another thing when something is wrong constantly. And I could see if it was the thing that I don't like and they change something that I find unforgivable to change, and then they did it every week, like the style of the ship. Right. I could see being very frustrating.
It is a mental gymnastic I had in place anyway because of all of the continuity errors of the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. My God, Voyager.
Break glass around head cannon in case of emergency.
If I didn't have those mental gymnastics, I would be just like in the fetal position of slobbering mess on the floor.
If these writers and producers just understood what they do to us when they change these things. Yeah. All right, let's see. You said there's a lot of things we got in the news. What else we got? Let's keep it moving. I am excited. That's my main word of it. I think it's going to be a little more episodic, and I think it's going to be a little more traditional Star Trek. And while I love what they're doing on Discovery, and while I want more of that, I want more of that in different manners. I really want a future story. I mean, we got Picard, obviously. I really want Picard to continue. But this could be really rad. And man, we're about to be in a world with 3 Star Trek shows on television, which has only happened once.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm pumped.
I don't think it's ever actually happened, has it? No.
Voyager.
It's always been only 2 at once.
Voyager season 1 wasn't on while
no.
Oh, I thought there was like a 1 season of overlap.
There was TNG and DS9. I think DS9 started in mid-season during season 6 of TNG, and then TNG ended, and then like in 1995 they launched Voyager.
Oh man, I just thought that we had a second where they were all on the air, but I guess I'm sure you're right.
I'm pretty sure Voyager launched mid-season 95, so they launched like January of 95.
Yep, I think. You're right.
I think
you're correct. I'm looking at it right here, January 95. So yeah, okay, my bad. This will be a first in Star Trek history, having 3 shows on. We are.
I thought you were about to say this has been a first. I was wrong.
What?
I'm like, oh, here goes Matt again on his bullshit.
I'll never admit I was wrong. Check the tapes. No, I will never admit it.
Anyway, yes, you were talking about Picard. Patrick Stewart was being interviewed, and he said, he was talking about the progression for season 2. He says, because of how we're living currently, there is no writer's room, but everybody's writing, and they are keeping me in touch with what's going on. We have video conferences. He says, there are startling events predicted in season 2. I am so excited about them because it is taking season 1 on from where we were. We are not going to be covering the same ground. It is going to be extraordinary. I am very excited about it. Of course, I can't go into detail at all. I have a long conference planned for tomorrow. This is a few days ago, where I hope for certain aspects of how season 2 will develop, and I'm looking forward to it very much. And Michael Chabon, the showrunner for season 1, said that season 2 is not going to pretend that those events never happened. Whatever the implications are going to be for Picard having his new body and essentially a new brain structure too will be explored. That is exciting as crap to me. They're not covering the same ground, but they're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. They're going to like get down into some like implications for what Picard has become.
The only thing I'm hearing is no hologram story.
I hope that that is covered though. I do, but
I know, but probably not if they're not covering the same ground. They had their chance. They had their chance.
Well, I can't remember who it was. I want to say Jerry Ryan maybe mentioned. I don't know where I saw that, but someone said that something about Robert Picardo being in Star Trek Picard at some point.
I hope he can be. I really do. I'd love to see where his character is, 20 years after Voyager or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd love it.
So yeah, there was also a bit where Patrick Stewart said, was talking about Next Generation characters coming back. And he says, in meetings when we talked about bringing in members of Next Generation crew, that was one of the things I was most passionate about, which was not only should Picard have changed during the 18 years that passed, but the same has to be applied to Troy, to Riker, to whoever it is. And by the way, I am very hopeful we will see more of the Next Generation crew before we say goodbye to Picard. And that is just what they did. And there is no better example than the episode Nepenthe. So, which seems to indicate that was Frakes and Troy's goodbye.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, because Riker shows up in the last episode.
Well, yeah, but that was basically their way. Their big gushy goodbye. Like, yeah, he came and saved his bacon for a second, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see that being the last interaction with Picard, if that's what you mean. I just think that if there was enough push for it, I think we'd get a Riker series too.
We might, but Jonathan Frakes did recently say that he was glad they had retired him from Starfleet in the show.
Right. He's glad they retired him with the ability to go up and be a whatever fleet admiral whenever he wants to be. I'm glad
that's how it works, man.
Oh yeah, that's how it works. No, they normally just say fuck you.
Well, that's what they told Picard at the beginning of the show.
That's my joke, yeah. Riker, I love that. It's like, I just like that, I'm glad they retired him. I'm glad they closed that door. Like, what are you talking about? You were on the bridge as not just a captain, but you didn't bring one ship, you brought the fleet. What you retired from what? You're not retired, actually. Didn't he say he's technically on long furlough or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Nothing about his sentence made any sense. He's wrong. He's just wrong. I don't consider the comments of Frakes canon.
Well, that's going to bode terribly for the next thing. Jonathan Frakes was talking to comicbook.com, and he was talking about Discovery Season 3. And there's going to be a tonal shift, he says. He says, Michael Burnham has found a new core, not to mention a new partner in crime. So again, there's a big tonal shift on that show, less driven by the pain and guilt of her past, and more about the magical reunification of the Discovery crew and wherever she went off to. God knows where she went off to as the Red Angel. So those two things coming back together is very much the theme, and how grateful everyone is and what's next. It's got a lot of action, adventure, and not so much pain.
Not so much pain. All right.
Yeah, they're really kind of swinging for we're not doing dark and gritty anymore. We're doing happy. I like dark and gritty. I'm fine with dark and gritty.
I am fine with dark and gritty.
You merely adopted the darkness. I was born there.
I like dark and gritty. I have no problem with dark and gritty, but I also really like the optimism of Star Trek, and I like the balance, and I like I like having characters that desire the light, you know what I mean? And then they have to toy in darkness sometimes to in the pale moonlight, man. That's the episode. That's as dark and gritty as I think Star Trek has ever gotten, honestly.
Yeah. No matter how many F-bombs they drop.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how many F-bombs, no matter how many adopted children have to die, no matter how many baby heads you drop in front of a bunch of Klingons, all that stuff is dark, but it's like shock jock sort of like not shock jock, but whatever. It's like shocking, like
shock horror or whatever.
Shock horror kind of gritty. Like having a captain who is who is supposed to be the leader of the show, make a decision that allows someone to assassinate a political leader just to bring them into a war, just to get your way politically. That was real dark. That's darkness, and that's the kind of stuff I like. So I love a good dark thing. That's often I say that's my favorite episode of Star Trek, and I just wish, I wish they could find that balance. I'm scared they're going to hard swing the other way.
Kurtzman is like sitting around going, like he's got a little minion come up like, Star Trek UCast. He's like, well, they said what? That's it. We're doing USS Jigsaw.
Like I honestly still feel like all the characters from Discovery are still kind of soft. Like the grittiness of I don't feel that way about Picard. Because I think 7 of 9 is very interesting. I think Raffi has a lot of darkness. I think Girardi, almost every character really has a lot of darkness, but the show is still hopeful. Picard doesn't. Well, Picard has regret. He doesn't really have a lot of darkness, but the show is still pretty hopeful. The save each other sort of vibe of the last episode really, it's meaningful and it's touching, but like. I just think that I'm scared they're going to go hardcore the other way, and we're going to get like a bunch of rainbows and bubblegum for the next season until everybody pushes back within that. I wish they'd be less reactive and make good art, But I wish that for like everything.
Except, I'm really excited about the Captain Tobin Bell commanding that they start up the primary hole saw. This is Captain Tobin Bell. Right. Would you like to play a game? Would you? I want to see that version of Star Trek.
Sorry, Tobin Bell was too much of a deep cut. I forgot that Jigsaw's name. I had myself cryogenically frozen. I'm back.
It's such a great name too. Like,
what if we woke up and found out they were making a Tobin Bell Jigsaw Star Trek series, like, and they were just suddenly making all the Jigsaw series is like deep prequels to Star Trek. Like,
I would simultaneously be furious and excited beyond belief.
Yeah. Oh, this reminds me of. Did you hear the Hollywood story of the third? They had meetings. Like, all we know is there were meetings. You know when they had that big? I think it was Sony had that big Sony leak.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And they leaked a ton of emails.
Right.
It's like how a bunch of bad stuff happened. They think it was North Korea, whatever. But one of the things that they leaked, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they were thinking about doing that, was that the third in the series of 21 Jump Street movies
was a Men in Black,
was a Men in Black sequel, and they were going to get those two characters to join the Men in Black, and everyone hated on that, even the idea of that so hard, and I thought that was genius. Like, I thought that would have been amazing. I was so on board. I think that would be like, especially, given it 20, I think it'd probably be way better than what they did with Chris Hemsworth and
I never
Tessa
saw
Thompson.
that one.
I didn't either. I just like, it looked like a rehash. It looked like they did the same thing, and I thought the idea of doing a much more adult, like if they'd kept it grounded, because the thing about those 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, I think the second one's called, they still tell a cop story, right? It's just this really over-the-top raunchy humor on top that is very funny, and I'd love to see them tell a Men in Black story, but no kids today care about Men in Black, and I realize they want them to. They'd love to revive that, but if they could do it like a Deadpool style sort of Men in Black, rated R humor on top of that world that's built in Men in Black, I would freaking love it. Okay, enough said about that. Sorry, keep derailing.
This is actually a backdoor pilot for our Men in Black podcast that we're starting. Every week we'll review one of the 4 Men in Black movies.
Dude, there's an animated series.
Oh, there is absolutely an animated series, and it was better than both of the sequels.
That's probably true. Although, man,
I loved the animated series.
MIB Cubed, though. It
was good.
It was real good.
It was good.
That time travel story, it was touching.
Absolutely.
Touched my heart, man. Touched my heart.
Yeah. My friend Brent, who does Marvel Squadcast and Fans Without Borders, he saw Men in Black International. And I was like, hey, man, what do you think of it? I've been toying with seeing it. And he was like, I mean, it was a Men in Black movie. It was good.
Yeah, it looked good. It looked totally good to me, but it looked like exactly how he said it. It's a Men in Black movie. It didn't feel like it was treading any new ground.
Which I would I want to do like after some big alien invasion situation, and like it's like Will Smith having to restart the agency. And like change their mission. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to see. Like they failed to protect Earth. Now everyone knows, the few who are left know that aliens are there, but now the mission must change. Like, I don't know, man. That sounds cool to me. Something like that.
Yeah, like a Men in Men in White or something, and it's like the difference between shield and sword. Mm-hmm. Like in Marvel Comics. So like you have like a offensive mission to go like fight aliens that are trying to destroy Earth. That sounds like a real dark turn though. What I'm describing, like anything offensive from the Men in Blacks would seem off.
Hey man,
for the tone.
But that's what happens, man. The brighter the picture, the darker the negative.
Yeah, well, and it could be interesting if they did that and then like learned a lesson from it. Like if Will Smith, oh man, actually, yeah, I kind of love this idea. Will Smith restarts the agency, right? So we're breaking our new Men in Black movie here. So he's now the head of the agency, and we have some sort of like, and it's clearly a 9/11 like thing, right? We've been attacked. It's 9/11. It's Pearl Harbor. It's whatever. Which, by the way, have you seen this week's Rick and Morty? Never mind. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, so good, so freaking good. Okay. So Jay is now the head of Men in Black. Because he's been there 30 years or whatever, and they get attacked 9/11 style, and the villain of the piece is Jay, who is so bent on revenge for what this alien race did, and a young upstart agent or two have to stop the agency. Like they have to go. It's like a basic like Mission Impossible type thing where they always go rogue like every movie. But it's just like I could totally see that. Like if Will Smith comes back as the villain who's like too vengeful in his older age. Yeah, man. Yeah,
I could deal with that.
Me too.
Anyway, let's move on.
What other Star Trek news is there? Give us a call, whoever makes Men in Black.
Right.
If you like our ideas.
Next week we'll give our pitches for what we would have done in Voyager. Actually, we really should. We should do that.
That's fine. That would be fine. I mean, I think we have. I think we've talked about that before, but yeah, we could do a formal episode where it's like, what should have happened in Voyager? What's some things we wanted to see?
I came up with like half of a pitch the other day, just like doing like chores around the house. I was just thinking about it. I was like, oh God, that would have been amazing. But I'll save it for the episode.
I don't like breaks in canon. I like things to remain on track with the previous content. Yeah. The one thing I probably would be okay with is if they just completely remade Voyager. Like I'd probably be fine if they just said, oh no, that's the alternate universe. The thing that happened in the Prime universe is, and then like just tell the story like it should have originally been told. And we'd lose a few key characters, but it could be great.
It happened in the Blandiverse.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Bryan Fuller Bryan Fuller was talking. He was asked about his version of Discovery, and he talked about how it was in some ways an abstraction. He said he started talking about the Mirror Universe specifically, and he said the thing that really fascinated me in sitting down and crafting the story of Discovery was the human condition. I thought that there are elements in the Mirror Universe that we have seen, that we have sort of boiled to the broadest ends of the spectrum, and everything felt really binary. And what I really wanted to do in setting out was looking at the minutia of really simple decisions that have a cascade effect on our lives. So it's not about gold lame sashes and goatees versus no sash and clean shaven. It's more about we are at forks in the road every moment of our lives, and we either go left or right. It makes me think of Joe Menosky's speech in Voyager's Latent Image, where the Doctor has a Sophie's choice. He can only save one life, and he chooses Ensign Kim versus the other ensign, and it is a split decision, and it causes his entire program to unravel because he can't handle how his choice was always going to cost a life. It was his Kobayashi Maru. So there was something in the mistakes made by Burnham in Battle of the Binary Stars that had this ripple. But the Mirror Universe was always meant to be an exploration of a small step in a different direction. So it wasn't necessarily the Mirror Universe we know from all of the other series. It was something that was closer to our timeline and experience, so you can just still recognize the human being and go, what did I do? How did that seem like a good decision for me in that moment? And how do I continue with my life forward? And everything was a sort of an explanation out on that. So there was things that I wanted the Mirror Universe to function in a narrative exploration of like, oh, if I just didn't do that one thing, everything would be better, as opposed to, I don't recognize that person. I don't know who that person is because they are a diametric opposite of who I am. So that was kind of what the goal was.
Yeah, I like all that. I don't know that it didn't seem like a different universe than to me, but I guess the only place I really see that being a thing is I guess the relationship between the captain from the first episode.
Right.
What's her name?
Philippa Georgia.
Yeah, that's it. Philippa Georgia and Burnham. Like their characterizations seemed like they were very close, but we didn't see much else. And I guess we heard about Killy, but we didn't get to
Captain
see.
Killy.
And that didn't feel to me like it was a small change. That felt like a very different character. It felt a lot like the Mirror Universe. I do think they'd made it more realistic, if that's what he means. I don't know.
Oh,
what do you think?
No, I know. Well, Bryan Fuller left the show like a year before it even came out. Like things were drastically changed.
I know, and that what he's talking about sounds really great, and sounds really nuanced.
Yeah, he's talking about not doing proper Mirror Universe. He's talking about like a different universe that's way closer to just like the normal universe. Is just, in this instance, she started a war. In this instance, she didn't. Something like that, I think.
Oh, interesting.
And how different it would have been.
That would have been interesting. I like what they did better, maybe, though. I do like the visit to the Mirror Universe.
Yeah, I don't know, but we have heard that Lorca was not supposed to be Mirror Universe, according to Fuller. Like, he was just a brilliant strategist, but was sort of a sociopath, I guess.
Yeah, that is... It does feel a little... Okay, so we have this conversation. Actually, it's weird that I have this conversation way more on the MCU cast than I do here. Just because
stop talking about Star Trek on MCU cast.
I know, we talk about it all the time. Over on MCU cast, everyone loves Star Wars. Most of our listeners love Star Wars, and I get it. It's kind of similar in tone to the Marvel movies, especially now that Disney, the mouse has them both in its clutches. But it feels. I often say that Star Trek. The reason I like Star Trek is because of the nuance in the moral arguments. Often, that's why I like Star Trek as opposed to Star Wars, because Star Wars is about the guy with the blue lightsaber versus the guy with the red lightsaber, and that one's good because he's got the blue one. Like this guy wears white, that guy wears black.
Is somewhat of a gross oversimplification of Star Wars, but I gotcha.
I won't say that it's not a simplification. I don't think it's a gross one. Like if you watch those movies, it's literally like The story of Darth Vader, someone called me on some of this being bullshit, but I still say this. I still say this is pretty true. Darth Vader, young boy, fighting along Jedi, and you just don't get a good sense of why he takes that quick turn and kills a bunch of children. It's like
you don't.
It's like a switch turns in their heads where like I'm on the light side of the Force. I am now on the dark side of the Force. You know, it's like there's a switch.
It wasn't a quick switch. It was over those 3 movies, but
right.
And you see more of it happening. Apparently,
the Clone Wars shows, yeah,
it's Star Wars, but
right.
I haven't watched it because Star Wars. But yeah, nice.
That's what everyone keeps telling me. Everyone tells me it's the Clone Wars. You got to watch the Clone Wars. I'm like, no, tell me.
No, you shouldn't have to.
Tell me exactly. You shouldn't have to, and that is the problem. And Star Trek, I like to say, is more evolved than that in its telling of moral tales. I don't like that they took away the idea of Lorca being from our universe, because I would have liked to seen. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to seen Lorca meet a version of Lorca in that universe that was working for the good side. You know, like what if he met the mirror version of him and he's working for the Resistance, you know? Like that
right.
That's what I would have liked to seen. And then our Lorca have to deal with the fact that why am I such a goody two-shoes in this world, and why does that bother me so much? Because I do like the idea that they have this captain who's a brilliant tactician. It's the pale moonlight again. It's the making the decisions that have to be made, and that's an interesting story. And I do feel like by making him from the mirror universe, it sort of takes us to that Star Wars place where it's like, well, he's doing these morally shady things because he's a dark Jedi. He likes to be in the dark. He's got a red sword. Yeah. You get my meaning.
Yeah, I do. All right, so you want to talk a little bit about Lower Decks?
Always.
Mike McMahon gave a little bit of an update, explained that they're recording and whatnot, and it's on track. It's going to premiere later this year.
Wow.
This is the animated Lower Decks. And he reiterates that within Lower Decks, there is a proper in-canon Star Trek show. He says it takes place during the TNG era. It's on a ship that feels like it's always existed there, and the bridge crew is dealing with big, never-before-seen Starfleet, Star Trek-type stories. So every episode has a thing that is happening in it. And then on top of that, we've got A stories and B stories that are emotionally driven from the point of view of the lower deckers on the ship. So it was an area of storytelling that people had covered every once in a while in Star Trek, but never built a show around. It was important to me that if you know everything about Star Trek and you watch this show, then it fits into canon and doesn't break Star Trek. In fact, it grows it. And if you know nothing about Star Trek, then all of the canon in Lower Decks feels like mythological, broad, understandable sci-fi stuff. So you can still enjoy Lower Decks, even if it's your first Star Trek show. That is neat, and I've wanted to see something like that for a long time. I think I referred to it as Scrubs in Space years ago.
Yeah.
I'm down for it.
Yeah, man.
Have you seen Solar Opposites yet, by the way?
No. I've never heard that.
Solar Opposites is 8 episodes. It's been renewed for a second season. It's on Hulu.
Okay.
And it is from Justin Roiland and Mike McMahon. And Mike McMahon had worked with Justin Roiland on Rick and Morty. He was the script editor for at least the first season of Rick and Morty. And he's doing this show, Lower Decks. And he has done Solar Opposites. And it is about a group of aliens who have come to live on Earth because their planet exploded or some shit. And it is funny and irreverent and well worth a watch.
I saw a trailer for it, and I thought I heard Justin Roiland's voice, but I didn't know.
You did?
I didn't know anything about the show, and so I was like, "That's either a ripoff of Rick and Morty, or that's Justin Roiland," and I can't tell. And I just hadn't pursued it further. But that's great to hear that it's Justin Roiland, because
it is him.
He is the magic of Rick and Morty. Like the thing about shows like that, they often tend to generate shows like themselves. Like everyone wants a Rick and Morty, you know? And that's kind of what I'm worried about with Star Trek Lower Decks, is that it's going to be like sort of like, it's this animated, sort of, I don't think it's going to be as risque by far. I don't think you can get more risque than Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty this week, man.
Yeah. What's funny is like everyone that I've talked to who has watched Solar Opposites says, I mean, it's pretty good. It's not Rick and Morty. And they're sad about that. And I'm like, yeah, I like Rick and Morty more, but also it took me like 4 episodes to really get into Rick and Morty and go, oh, wait, this is bloody brilliant and not just an old man burping.
Yeah. Yeah. So it took me a couple episodes too.
Yeah, Solar Opposites has some really fun stuff going on, and I would recommend it to everyone who likes Rick and Morty, and just realize it's not going to be Rick and Morty. But
right, but what you're saying is it's the creator of the show that is going to be Lower Decks.
Yes, it is Justin Roiland from Rick and Morty and Mike McMahon who is doing Lower Decks, and
he did Rick and Morty some too, right?
He did. Yep, he was the story editor in season 1.
That definitely makes me more interested in Solar Opposites. So thank you. I will check it out.
It is 8 episodes, dude. It's a cookie.
Maybe we'll burn through it and we'll do a cast about what we think. Because if it's McMahon, we might get a sense of, is it as raunchy as Rick and Morty?
I don't feel like it is, no.
Okay, it'd be hard to be, honestly, because Rick and Morty has an ability to be not just raunchy, but like darker in its heart. Like, the show can be like so dark, so very dark, in a way that like makes you question your own sanity. Like,
it doesn't get that deep for me.
Oh man, yeah, for me it does. Like the freaking, I mean, the episode where like Rick has to bury his own body. That's some dark stuff. And this week they had a whole.
And he had done it before. He didn't care. He was just like, "Yep, that's what's happening." No,
not the episode I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the first time when he has to deal with the like existential dread of himself finding his own dead body in a parallel universe and taking over his own. Yeah, if you haven't seen Rick and Morty, it's weird.
Rick didn't seem to care though.
I'm talking. I said Morty.
Whatever, Morty.
I said Morty. I'm talking about Morty.
Did you say?
Yeah, I said Morty. Yeah. Morty having to deal with that is such a dark thing. And then all the darkness inside of Rick is very real and very like human. It's not the darkness. It's we were just talking about the moral like gray areas not existing on some of these sci-fi shows. Like Rick and Morty exists in that moral gray area between. Well, I don't know. Like the characters are always taking steps in one direction or the other.
I would go so far as to call it the moral black. Like,
I would agree with that. I mean, it's the moral. It's kind of morally.
I don't know, man. A lot of times, I don't feel like they did. I don't feel like they do anything for good reasons.
No. They're very selfish for sure. Like all the time, and that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to like. But it's asking moral questions constantly. I guess I'm thinking about the meta narrative that's going on around the show. It is. There's a beautiful line, and it actually someone from our MCU cast group sent it to me this week. They were like, I think this clip from Rick and Morty supports Matt's theory about Star Wars, and it was they're on the planet. They're on a planet of aliens, and the aliens just tried to kill them, and they were trying to shoot a missile at Earth that would destroy Earth, basically, or take over Earth, whatever. And they're flying around, blowing up all of the structures on this planet, like just killing massive amounts of these alien beings. And Rick says, "This feels good, man. You know, it's like the old days. There's nothing morally ambiguous about this. Like we just get to kill them. It's just kind of fun." And he's like, "Yeah, like Star Wars." It was just like, yes, that's what I've been saying forever. And then and that's beautiful. And then it's funny because they're commenting on the meta narrative about the morally morally dark, black and white, and how that can be way worse than the kind of show they're making, you know?
Right.
And so the meta narrative going on in Rick and Morty is way more nuanced and interesting than Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvel or any of that. It's like way more nuanced, because a moment later they come upon the Twin Towers built by these people, and they realize that they are these people's 9/11. And it's such a crazy show. It's just a crazy show, guys. If you don't watch Rick and Morty, it's amazing. Give it a few episodes and forgive it for all the being just an old guy burping.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't watched it, give it a shot. All right, so Robert Duncan McNeil and Garrett Wang apparently have been continuously interested in and pursuing a Captain Proton series.
All right.
I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen.
This is the guys. This is the two actors that played in that.
Yeah, Tom Paris and Harry Kim.
Interesting.
A fan asked if they would be interested in going back to their Voyager characters, and they said it would be interesting to see, and it would be really fun, and they would love to see where their people are. And then they started talking about Captain Proton and how they've been wanting to do a Captain Proton series. And Captain Proton, if you don't remember, if you didn't watch Voyager, this was the holodeck series that was like an old 1950s, 1940s, 1950s style like movie serial where Tom Paris is running around with a jetpack and a laser gun, and Janeway was Lady Arachnia or some horseshit. I don't know. And Kim was his little buddy or whatever. His sidekick. I don't know.
That is true. Kim was his little sidekick.
And that was just true of the show.
Yeah, that's just the show.
And he said, and McNeil says, I've talked seriously about it with David Goodman, who worked on Enterprise as a writer, but also on the Orville, where I got to direct a couple of episodes. He says, I talked to Goodman about maybe writing that serial. I don't know if it would be a CBS All Access thing or something that we could do, but it would be fun and silly. We can get our cast back together. It would be a blast. And then Garrett Wang said, even if we went the crowdfunding route, similar to Alan Tudyk, who've been doing Con Man.
Yeah.
He says they received that funding within 2 days. It just flowed in millions of dollars. I do feel we could get the same reaction if we were to crowdfund. I don't think you could, buddy.
I hate to say I don't.
I'm sorry.
I mean, and it may just be revealing my own bias, but I am
right.
Like that just sounds. There's so much less goodwill right here for Voyager than there is for Firefly. And it is kind of similar, doing like a show that is not about the show. It's not the show you originally liked, but it's sort of a thing that's adjacent to the show you liked, with people from the show you liked. But I definitely don't have nearly as goodwill. I didn't give to that Con Man thing either, but I don't have nearly as goodwill toward Voyager. But I mean, that may just be my bias. I don't know. Maybe I know there are a lot of people that love Voyager, but to me, it's a lot of people that love Voyager aren't the rabid Star Trek fans that I am. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is when they did Captain Proton the first time, I laughed and said, well, that's a fun departure. And then they did it again. And I was like, are we really doing this again?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's Voyager in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is just like, hey, we're doing things and never changing.
So I would watch it because it is, an offshoot or in reference to Star Trek, I suppose. But
yeah, I'm going to say it now. I don't think I'd watch it. And I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just being honest. Like, it sounds like the kind of thing that they'd make, and I'd go, oh, I remember Captain Proton. And then I'd be like, I should watch that some night. I mean, maybe I'd watch it for the podcast because we cover Star Trek, but it's not even Star Trek. I don't think I don't know that I'd even watch it. Right. I would for the podcast if we wanted to cover it, but I would probably be on team like, do we need to cover it? I guess if there's no other news.
Here's what I would do, okay? if
All
I
right,
could
give me your Captain Proton pitch. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Captain Proton. Like I would want to see, like, they're in the same roles, they're doing the thing, and then like we get through an episode of it and we never say anything about it in the press, right? No, in the advertisements or anything.
Yeah, man, but we got to keep a lid on this shit.
Right. And then at the end of the episode, like Captain Proton is like, we're gonna go do this, and then like his buddies, like Kim, goes like, man, I gotta get home, and he like, oh, all right, no, it's fine, it's yeah, and then they end the hologram, right, and Kim is really worried about Paris, and it turns out that like Paris has been like escaping into Captain Proton because bad shit has happened between him and B'Elanna, or like his life is in ruins. Like maybe B'Elanna was killed, or maybe they're separated or divorced or whatever it is.
This feels like a Clerks sequel.
No, man.
I don't know why. It just does.
No. In my head, it's totally Rain on Me.
Oh,
or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Like with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Where like that's what it would be. It would be like Tom Paris, but with that. And I don't think the Star Trek fans would be like, that's not optimistic at all. I'm like, oh no, it's not. It's not, you sons of bitches. This is the darkest timeline.
This is me punishing you all.
And then it's right back to, he doesn't have a career except that he's running an old shipyard. Like, I just love that idea of Paris just running an old shipyard.
Yep, we met him in a shipyard. We find him in a shipyard in the end, and he'll die in a shipyard.
We didn't meet him in a shipyard, did we? He was in prison.
Oh, it was a prison, but he was working on stuff. Like, he was working in a shipyard in that first episode when she goes to pick him up, right?
Man, it's been so long. I don't think it was. But,
unless I'm just straight up remembering one of the other characters in the first episode of Voyager.
I remember him being like in a garden or some shit.
Okay, maybe you're right.
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway,
I thought he was like working like in like doing prison labor in like a shipyard when we met him.
Maybe he was,
but I don't know. I'd have to rewatch that first episode. And I probably won't.
For that to happen, I'd have to watch Voyager.
I don't know, man. I'm cooking through DS9 pretty fast. I'll probably throw on some Voyager at some point. No, wait.
Yeah,
what am I thinking? I literally just rewatched Voyager like a little bit ago.
I thought you had.
I did, and I like it has gone in one. Oh, you know what? That's why I don't remember the first episode. I skipped it. I jumped to the 7 and 9 stuff. It was during our Picard rewatch that I watched all that 7 and 9 stuff. I watched a lot of 7 and 9 centric episodes, trying to figure out who she was.
Well, I've been a little tempted to start watching Voyager. And watch along with Garrett Wang and Neil, and I almost said Neil Patrick Harris, Paris, whatever his name is, Robert Duncan McNeil.
That's it.
Because they've got that Delta Flyers podcast. Anyway,
yeah. I've heard about it. Again, it's a Star Trek thing, but it's not Star Trek. I don't have affection for those guys all that much. I mean, I liked Paris when I was 12 or whatever.
Right. I like Tom Paris. I would have liked him more in hindsight if he was Nick Locarno, like he was supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember that. I know that it would have been nice to have the connection to TNG, but whatever.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, he's the same character. His name is just different. He's the exact same character.
Right. I know.
It's aggravating. Anyway, one more bit of news here that I had that I thought was interesting, and it's what I referred to at the beginning of the show. Viacom CBS, we've done this big merger now. CBS is back with Paramount, the whole 9 yards.
You mean you held off the tease for a whole hour?
That's right.
Man, what a showman.
I know. Waka waka. I don't know.
That's your epitome of a showman.
Yep.
I think that might be your problem.
I have several. I even straightened an imaginary tie when I said waka waka. Oh, kill me.
Kill me. Sorry.
So here was some exciting news. Viacom CBS, these are the guys who control Star Trek franchise on film and television. They reported their earnings for the first quarter of 2020 with $6.7 billion in revenue. And that was ahead of where projections had them. And their stock jumped 15% in the early morning trading on May 7th. And there was a video conference, and here's what was said. It looks like CBS All Access and Showtime delivered record subscribers, signups, and consumption reflecting original programming, including Star Trek Picard and Homeland, live TV and original programming such as Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, The Good Fight, and Survivor drove consumption records in April on CBS All Access, with total streams and minutes watched up significantly. Now Viacom CBS CEO Bob Bakish said, building off of our CBS All Access platform, with major changes coming this summer, as we track towards a rebrand and relaunch of a transformed product. They're talking about CBS All Access here. We believe audiences want their product on demand and their news, sports, and events live. Through our expanded offering, we will be the service that gives them what they want, how they want it, all in one place at a great value. We start with what All Access has today: CBS network programming, a very deep CBS on-demand library, and an expanding slate of originals. Add to that content from Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, Smithsonian, MTV, BET, and Paramount. This starts with over 100 films launched this week on the platform, along with thousands of hours of TV and film arriving in coming months. And we will build on this incredible base of content with a catalog multiple times greater than many of the new subscription streaming services by expanding our original slate across that portfolio. Our biggest franchises will be key to this strategy, as will our broad programming strength across genres, from animation to sci-fi, comedy, reality, kids, crime, procedurals, and more. Our original strategy is destined to leverage our massive library of IP, fueling growth through a consistent and growing cadence of tentpole series. So we've already seen the 100 Paramount films, including some Star Trek films, now added to CBS All Access. This is extremely exciting to me. Like, I think it's a really amazing step to making this a real contender and getting Star Trek out there.
Yeah.
But that's what I was talking about. Like, we don't know if it'll. I doubt it.
It might be rebranded.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be rebranded. He said.
Interesting. I do think CBS All Access is generally a bad name. It's like, hey, get this backstage pass to CBS.
Yeah, and here's the other thing though. And we've talked about CBS All Access and their interface. He says, and how bad it is. He says, you will see a major move this summer where we will introduce a fundamentally new user interface and add substantial content assets. So yeah, I am all on board. As long as it's not worse, I'm all on board replacing the UI for CBS All Access, because I think that is horse shit.
Yeah, man. Totally agree.
Terrible to navigate.
Yeah, man. I'm definitely on board with a new UI. That I hate their UI so much. It's constantly making me rewatch ads over and over. I can't rewind or fast forward. It's really, really bad.
Yep, it really is. So I've got one more little piece of news, and it's not really even little. It's not. It's huge, because they have got to get their programming, their original programming, off of Amazon Prime and Netflix internationally. He says, internationally, we will launch a broad pay streaming product in multiple markets over the next 12 months. This service will harness the full power of the Viacom CBS portfolio, including a meaningful brand presence in streaming video in key markets around the world. Dude, that has been one of their biggest weaknesses, is like shopping it out to other people internationally. Right. Like, so I'm excited, and it's Paramount. So I already subscribed to this thing. Can you please put the freaking Mission Impossible show and movies on this thing? I need to watch those.
Yeah. You need to watch those after you finish all the Bond stuff because it's kind of related.
That's right. It is. It's spy shit.
Yeah, you should just change the name of your show to Spy Shit.
Right. We finally got to hear the line from in the famous line in Goldfinger where he's like, "Do you expect me to talk?" And Goldfinger goes, "No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to die."
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that line was real? I thought it was just from Austin Powers.
That's great. I was by the way, before I say this, if you don't know what we're talking about, Dave's got a new show called Breaking Bond, where him and his wife are covering all of the James Bond series in exhaustive detail, maybe exhausting detail.
Wow, that's not a pitch for the show, man.
No. I was gonna give you shit for starting with that first one. The show's great. I'm really enjoying your show, but I just keep giving you shit because you started with some weird teleplay.
It was a live adaptation of Casino Royale. It was the first James Bond thing, and it was an American James Bond with Peter Lorre as the villain. How did we not talk about this? We couldn't not talk about that.
I understand. But yeah, they're talking about all the Bond movies called Breaking Bond. Great name, great show. You guys are delightful. Y'all go check that out. But I actually heard an interview this week with Mike Myers. He was on Conan. Yeah, he was on Conan. On Conan Needs a Friend, the podcast. And Mike Myers was talking about how he finally showed his kids. He was showing his kids the Bond movies. And they found I guess Goldfinger or whoever Dr. Evil is a Blofeld. Yeah, that's right. Dr. Evil is a parallel of, and his kids were apparently like, "Dad, you completely ripped this off." And he's like, no, it's like an homage. He's like, no, like you didn't do anything different. He has like the same scar, he has the same cat, he sees some of the same lines. Like you just ripped this off.
Except for the part where he's Lorne Michaels. Clearly.
Yeah, he's like, no, it's a loving homage. And his kids were like, no. It's really funny.
And what's funny is because, like, I know that he based part of that character on Lorne Michaels. Every time I hear Lorne Michaels give an interview, like, it's one of my favorite things to hear Lorne Michaels give interviews because it just sounds like Dr. Evil to me.
It really, really does. It's pretty great.
It's just like, what if Dr. Evil was just kind of an amiable bloke who ran, like, a huge production company?
Dr. Evil is Lorne Michael in a mirror universe.
Yeah. You know, the thing about comedy, the comedians are the monkeys at the zoo. You know, like...
Yeah. It's great. All right. What else else we got?
That's it. We're done.
Oh, I thought you had one more thing. All right, cool. Well, guys, you guys are awesome for listening to this podcast. If you've made it this far, we love you extra. Don't tell the others.
I know Nerdy-tastic made it.
Nerdy-tastic. We talk on Twitter all the time. I always see your stuff on Twitter.
She's my favorite.
Yeah, she's great. Thank you. This is just a shout out to Nerdy-tastic.
That's right. She listened to all the shows.
Yeah.
If you did, maybe we'd be talking about you.
Gotta listen to all the shows, guys. You get these very valuable shout outs at the end of an hour and 15-minute episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast while there's no content to watch. It's prime real estate.
Let's wrap it up, man. I got taco casserole waiting on me.
Oh, all right. Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Jolan True.
You bastard. I wanted to say it. Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.